Hello there, Drew Hanish of Whiskey Lore, and it is time for another tasting video. And today I am going to be doing a tasting of Westland's American Single Malt, the peated version. If you've been to the store, you've seen they've got three different, not for long, details coming up on that here in a moment, but they have a peated, they have a sherry wood, and then they have their American oak. And so I wanted to start off doing a tasting on the peated. Just as a program reminder, I actually did an interview with Chris Riesbeck, who is the VP of Sales for Westland, and that will be coming up on a future interview. So keep your eyes out for that. And we talked all about the whiskeys that they have now and a very exciting experiment that's coming up, called an experiment, but it's actually the path that they're wanting to blaze for the future in terms of American peated whiskeys. So we'll get to that here in just a couple of moments. Gonna do a nosing and tasting on this one. And if you're enjoying the tastings, make sure you like the videos and leave comments below. Tell me whether you've had Westland's peated whiskey, what you think of it. Compare it to Scotch peated whiskey if you wanted to. Love to hear your thoughts on it. Now, a very interesting way that they make this whiskey, they actually have what's called a Barley Bill. And all three of their whiskeys have that Barley Bill. The peated version actually adds in an additional barley, so they go from 5 to 6 on this particular whiskey. The barley does come from, the peated barley does come from Baird's in Scotland. So it's basically coming from a similar place and is likely similar in character to what is ending up over at Bruichladdich, which is another distillery that's under the same company. And so there should be some character in there that seems somewhat familiar. On the nose, there's a little fruit action that comes in, and I almost get like a little hint of mint in there. The oak is there. There's a sweet citrus smell that comes in, and a bit of a forest smoke, which is what I get out of Bruichladdach's barley that is coming from inland rather than coming from the Octomore farm. It is 55 ppm, so it's going to be up there in terms of ratio of phenols parts per million to something like a Port Charlotte heavily peated. But before you get excited, it is only a portion of the entire mash bill. So what they did was, rather than doing what Octomore does or what Port Charlotte heavily peated does, which is, and actually more Port Charlotte heavily peated because Octomore takes whatever it gets. Whereas they'll take and say, okay, we want to get to 55 ppm, then what we're going to do is we're going to take this that's 150 or whatever, and we're going to take this, which is really low ppm, and we're going to blend them together until we get to the ppm we want to get it to. And so you're getting 100% of that ppm. In this case, you're getting only a fraction of that ppm in this whiskey. So it is not as heavily peated as those scotches overseas that are giving you ppm numbers. And that's why a lot more of kind of the fruit characteristics, I think, are coming through on the nose on this one. And they have a very interesting way that they age these as well, because they not only age them in first fill bourbon barrels, kind of the same way that you do over in Scotland, but they also have two different types of American oak barrels that they use. One that has a 3 char, which is lighter than most bourbons, but not much. And then they do a light toast on those as well. And then the other barrels are a heavier toast and they use a 1 char on them. So you're not going to get as much of a char influence on these whiskeys as you would on a bourbon. And so this is kind of a hybrid between the way that American whiskeys are made and the way that Scotch whiskeys are made. So it makes for a very interesting experiment. On the palate, some of that fruit comes through, some grain comes through, maybe a little bit of an appley kind of thing. Then you got a milky smoke rides through it. As you get to the finish, you jump into a ginger pepper note, and then the caramel kind of fills in on top of that, and I get a little of that caramel apple thing happening on the finish. It's a really nice whiskey. The sad thing about it is this is going to become a heritage brand. I'm not sure whether you'll still be able to get it after a while. So if you see a bottle of it and you're interested in it, I would go grab it, because what they're going to do at Westland is they are consolidating, and they're taking those 3 bottles and turning them into 1 bottle, a flagship product that will have the peat, the sherry oak, and the American oak all kind of melded into one. So you're going to get those sherry notes, you'll get a hint of smoke, but you're not going to, it's going to be less smoke than you're going to get in this. So if you're a peat head like I am, it might be worth hunting down a bottle of this before it's too late. Really enjoyable whiskey, and yeah, I say this is a good one, and would definitely be interested in trying it again. As you can see, I put a little dent in my bottle. Again, if you enjoyed the tasting here, go ahead and give us a like and subscribe if you want to see more of these videos. I've got more coming up, including doing tastings on the American oak and the sherry wood coming up. So until next time, cheers and slàinte. Oh, and if you hung with me a little bit longer, this thing I told you that was information to come, they are actually going to start doing their own peat. They will be the first distillery that I know of in the United States that will be using American peat sources for making their whiskey in the future. So they do special bottlings like Peat Week in the wintertime. Hopefully we'll get a chance to taste a bottle that has high impact of what American peat tastes like, because it will be made up of different material than Scottish peat. So it will be very interesting to see what they come up with. There you go. Cheers. Slàinte.